Hello, class, and welcome back. We last time we talked about the origins of Japan, and we discussed the pros and cons of the geography that Japan was able to enjoy and to not enjoy due to its location. We also talked about Shintoism and how it changed or how it uh, allowed Japanese people to live a certain way of life. And lastly, we discussed about the Ainu and Jimmu around 660 BC and the kicking out of the Ainu and the ushering in of what is now known as Japan. So today we're going to talk about more feudal Japan. We're going to talk a little bit more about emperors and about how Chinese culture is going to permeate more and there might be a little bit of a backlash on that. Very similar to other cultures where you go swing one way with a foreign culture and eventually it swings back to no, let's go back to the traditional way of which we lived. So we have the Yamato period. It's from 300 to 710. It's called the Great King's Era. During this time, there's great things that happen. Of course, lots of Chinese influence. You have Chinese language, Confucianism, Buddhist sects, Chinese art, architecture. You have a government structure. So China is kind of like the big brother everybody wants to copy right now in Japan. And then you have Prince Shokotu. Now he also is a heavy advocate of Chinese culture, looking at it as more superior to Japanese. They started introducing more things. Of course, he's heavy on Confucianism, and he even drew up a written plan of government based on teachings of Confucius. That was how devoted he was. Um, he the in imitation of Chang'an, which was the capital of Japan, I believe during the Sui dynasty, I think. Uh, Japanese builders laid out a magnificent square city on the island of Honshu. Now in 1800s, Japan's ruling family abruptly broke contact with the Tang court. Japanese leaders wanted nothing more from China. So around 1800s, there was again this huge swing back to, you know what, we're kind of losing our own identity because we've took too much of China's culture. And so during the Tang Dynasty, Japanese sort of pushes against China culture anymore and tries to regain traditional Japanese values. Okay, so it's a Heian period, I believe. Heian period. In 794, Emperor Kamu built new capital Heian, the modern Kyoto, Japan's golden age. Heian was population of about 100,000 people, 3,000 which belonged to the noble class. These families lived so far above the common people they were called the dwellers among the clouds. And so, if you haven't guessed already, there's a lot of inequality going on at this time. Uh, Big gaps in social structures that are created to be accepted into the Heian society. One had to write poetry. Women writers of the Heian court were far more noteworthy than were the male writers at the time. Japanese women in the Heian age were held in high esteem, and there's going to be a famous woman Japanese writer who is still famous today, especially the Tale of Genji. So we'll talk more about her. Growth of large land estates happened during this time. Art and literature of China flourished. Elaborate court life, personal diaries, the Pillow Book, the Tale of Genji, moving away from Chinese models of religion, art, and government. So slowly, Chinese stuff is they're taking what they like of China, but they don't want it to be so strong as to overshadow what is Japanese culture. They want to maintain their own identity. Chinese writings occurred. Uh, Chinese artistic style, Buddhism in the Zen form. Zen emphasizes the attainment of enlightenment and the personal expression of direct insight in the Buddhist teachings, but not the Chinese civil service system. So they're not going to incorporate the exam system that was so prominent during the Sui and the Tang dynasty. And here we have some of the dress that went on during the Heian court. A book of observations, musing recorded by the author during her time at court, lady to Empress. I'm probably gonna mess this up, but Teishi during the 990s and early 11th century in Heian, Japan. We have the Tale of Genji. Now, it is sometimes called the world's first novel, the first modern novel, and first psychological novel, for the first novel still to be considered a classic. The novel also illustrates a unique depiction of the livelihoods of high courtiers during the Heian period. Lady Murasaki Shikibu. She contributed much to the Japanese script known as the kana, while men wrote with Chinese characters kanji. Minamoto Yoritomo founded the Kamakura shogunate. So this is going to be another, I don't know if I want to call it a dynasty, but some kind of a rulership during Japan. In 1192, the emperor gave Minamoto, later Yoritomo, the title of shogun. A shogun is supreme general of the emperor's army. The shogun had the power of military dictator. Officials, judges, taxes, armies, roads, all were under his control. A shogun, to be frank, in Japanese culture at one point becomes more powerful than the emperor himself. People still acknowledge the emperor for who he was, but the shogun really was more the person that called the shots. Even here it says that the shogun, he was in charge of judges, taxes, armies, roads, officials. I mean, you can't be in charge of all this government stuff and not have to flex some major power. The real center of power was at Shogun's military headquarters at Kamakura. The system of central government led by the shoguns lasted in Japan until 1868, nearly 700 years. Kamakura shoguns were strong enough to turn back to the naval invasion sent by the great Mongol ruler Kublai Khan in 1274 and 1281. Japanese victory over the Mongols drained the shogun's treasury, and the Kamakura shoguns lost prestige and power, and the civil war shook the land. Again, it takes a lot. Sometimes it could just wear down a empire just defending their land. We saw the same happen to the Byzantine and the Sasanians or the Persians, and then after they wore themselves down to the bone, and then it was the rise of Islam that was able to conquer both of them eventually. Here's a feudal society in Japan. You'll see that the emperor is at the top, always at the top. Shogun is next. Again, many shoguns were more powerful than the emperor as far as power and influence to be able to change things. Daimos, next. Samurai, ronin, peasants, artisans, and merchants. And people have often wondered, why is this looks a little strange. I mean, peasants are here. I mean, peasants, farmers, artisans, and merchants. I mean, usually farmers are towards the bottom, but here, farmers are right here instead of not the bottom. So I'll let you think about that for a little bit. See if you can come up as to why this social system that feudal Japan put together, why they put the farmers and the peasants a little closer now to the warrior class. Political, economic, and social systems based on loyalty, the holding of land, and military service. So here we have Japan. You have the shogun. Under the shogun, you have the daimyo. And under the daimyo, you have samurai who are loyal to the daimyo in defending their land. And in return, they get land for that as well. And of course, the peasants hold everybody up because, well, peasants make food, I guess. Code of Bushido. So Bushido is like an honor code, kind of like in Europe, they called it chivalry, where a knight was supposed to act a certain way. Well, a samurai was also supposed to act a certain way, and one of the or four of the major pieties of it were fidelity, politeness, virility, and simplicity. And here we have seppuku. Now, I, I think I saw a movie called The 47th Ronin. I think it had Keanu Reeves. And anyway, it was a story about people who were trying to avenge their masters, some samurai, and anyway, eventually they had to perform this. And what it means is it's an honor killing. So you're allowed to take your own life. Um, and it really shows that you're brave and you're who you are, a true samurai, if you're willing to take your own life, because you have somehow shamed the name of your master of some kind. Full samurai attire. Look at all that. How on earth did they move so well? Looks pretty thick. Samurai swords. Samurai swords are actually quite impressive. Even today, with samurai swords, they're extremely sharp, they're extremely strong, and extremely durable. Early mounted samurai warriors. Here we have samurai warriors. Here, some are on the horses as well. Okay, and here's kind of how the whole motion of samurai, how they put their defense on. You have the cotton breech clout, then you have the short sleeved kimono, sorry, billing pantalones, and then you have the sturdy shin guards. And so it was a lot of layers that a samurai wore, and each of these layers, no one else was really able to wear them. A peasant couldn't don this on or put it on, or trust me, it there would be a severe punishment, if not death, to try to pass yourself off as a samurai. You just didn't do that. And so wearing all this stuff had some intrinsic meaning. Um, and I'll let you go ahead and read the fine print there. Here are what modern day samurai look like today, and I think that ends it for today. So you're going to see a very big similarity between feudal Europe and feudal Japan, in that you're going to have knights from Europe and samurai from Japan that basically are functioning in the very same way. They both have masters that they've sworn to defend and protect their land, and in return, they get land from their masters. And and it's interesting because these two countries are so far apart from each other. They obviously didn't have contact with each other, but around the same time, this idea of feudalism uh, was able to permeate through both of these countries without them even sharing their cultures with each other. That doesn't happen very often. And so that's it. So the next one we're going to talk about, which will be our final one, we're going to talk about the similarities between Europe and Japan and their feudal systems. And so make sure you take all this to heart, write that summary, and I'll see you Monday. And then later next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we'll all be playing um, the game, the Japanese game. And till then, I'll talk to you then. Okay, bye bye.